So my name is JJ Flizanes, and I'm a personal trainer and empowerment strategist and a life coach. And I believe that everything that we learn needs to be integrated. If it's not integrated into your life, it's just information that you know, but you're not living, right? We gather a lot of data, but do we actually live it? So my approach to health, wellness, and to your soul's mission on this planet is to understand what the information you're searching for does for yourself, as well as how do I take this vessel that I have, take the best care of it so I can be a beacon for information, so I can put myself in a state of receiving without things getting in the way, like digestion or sickness or things like that. So the first sheet is for you to take notes if you want to, and a little bit about me. I do many different things. I am a podcast host. I'm a personal trainer. Like I said, I'm a life coach. I've got lots of different shows. Probably the show that would be most of interest to most people at this conference would be Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. It is by far my most popular show. I just completed my first weekend event a month ago called Releasing What Weighs You Down. And we worked on everything that weighs you down. Mind, body, and spirit. It wasn't about releasing weight necessarily, but for some it was. For some it was about releasing emotional baggage, releasing habits that block you. So that's a little bit about what I do. And so at the bottom of this page is my bio as well as my website, and I have a bunch of free tools. For instance, one of the free tools I have is on my podcast, Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. We do a free 30-day manifestation challenge. We're in it right now, so I'm not going to do another one until May, but it's free. It's to support you to help manifest what it is you want in your life and to do the practices every day that you know help you to get into that state of receiving. Right? So that's what's information on that page. What's the next packet of 3 pages is to go through all the different things on a program that I've created based on the book that I've written, my last book, and what we're going to talk about today. If it's not of interest to you, that's totally fine, but it's good information, just the rundown of the program, of what it all entails, and it also gives you an idea of what we're going to talk about today in terms of holistic integrative health. Because if you're not healthy, then we're not going to be able to receive, we're not at the highest vibration to receive that information that we need to do whatever it is, create abundance, have more compassion, because we have to start with ourselves. I believe that in order to make change, you have to work on yourself first, right? You have to be that change, yes? So I'm going to pass these out. In the meantime, as I go around, for those of you that just came in, if there's anything else that you want me to address today or that you've come in for, please let me know so I can write it down on this list. Okay, thank you, first of all. Thank you for coming to my room and taking a chance since you don't know me, and I don't know any of you. And thank you for giving me some ideas of why you're here today. I will address all of those concerns definitely before the end of today, and I'll leave a little bit of room for questions and answers. And I'll go through the presentation as planned and incorporate this in there if that's okay. Okay? All right. So my last book was called The Invisible Fitness Formula, 5 Secrets to Release Weight and End Body Shame. 20 years in the making, this book. I've been a personal trainer for 20 years. And I asked people, and I watched people for 20 years, who was successful in making real change? Who was successful in taking a step forward and investing in themselves in some way, or learning more about what it is they want to do with their body, and then actually doing it, and then living it forever. Not necessarily yo-yo. You're like, oh, they made great change and then they fell off, and then they made great change and they fell off. But what was sustainable? And it took me about 20 years to understand that, because the first conversation starts out on a physical level. As a personal trainer, you learn about the body. You learn about your bones, you learn about muscles, you learn about physiology, you learn about building muscle, you learn about food, hopefully, and biochemistry and how that handles with your body. But who doesn't know, really understand how to eat a little healthier? Forget whether you're vegan or if you're paleo or if you're keto, forget all that. But most of us understand that certain foods are not good for us at all. So is it really about the food conversation? Or exercise? How many of you understand exercise is good for you? Raise your hand if you know exercise is good for you. Raise your hand if you have a hard time doing it. Okay, so what's the disconnect? That's not a physical conversation. That's not information that I'm giving you. You already know that. So why aren't you doing it? So I had to dive a little bit deeper. I'd get clients who had back pain, and we'd do everything structural, and then we'd end up that they still had back pain. Well, why was that? So my education for the last 20 years has led me to, I'm a very curious person, and if I don't know the answer, I'm gonna go learn. And I have no problem telling you I don't know. And I'm gonna go figure it out and find out. Not because I need to have all the answers, because I wanna understand. Because I'm a problem solver, and I'm a really good problem solver. You give me a problem, I can solve it. Now, whether you do it or not is a different story. So, starting off with, let's just take whatever your goals are in your life. Pretend that, let's say you have, how many in this room want to be healthy forever? Who wants to be optimally healthy until you die? Woo. And how many of you understand that if you don't take care of your body, that you decline? Yes. So some people's trajectory looks like healthy, not so healthy, kind of bad, oh, now I'm hanging on by a thread, oh, I'm decrepit, oh, it's really bad, and then I die. And then the other choice is healthy, 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 dead. Yes? Okay. I like the healthy, 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 dead choice. And if that's you too, and you don't want to decline so rapidly, then take notes and ask questions if you want to about some of this information. So my 5 secrets to release weight and end body shame starts with something a little bit different than most people do. Most people want to tell you to count calories. Counting calories doesn't really work long term, because all calories are not created equal, right? There are good calories and not so good calories. And there's even, how many of you know that when you drink a diet soda or have some kind of diet drink, that still stimulates insulin production in your body? So even though that there's 0 calories, you're still pumping out more insulin than you need because your brain thinks it's sweetener. So 0 calorie drink does you no favors in the long run, because insulin is a very aging hormone. The more insulin you have in your body, the faster you age, the faster you break down. So we start with digestion and looking at your digestion. How many times a day does one eat? 2, 3. How many times a day should one be eliminating?
2, 3.
Goes in, goes out. Yes? If it's not going out, that's called constipation. But the average person eliminates maybe once a day, or maybe once every other day, and they think that's good. That's called constipation, my friends. Okay? That is not healthy digestion. What are some other signs of not healthy digestion?
Having a hard time going, like pain.
Constipation and pain. Yep. Heartburn. Sure. How about gas? How about bloating? How about stomach cramps? How about diarrhea? Those are all indications of not good digestion. So rather than looking at how many calories am I eating, how about how's my digestion doing? How many of you don't have to raise your hands, just in your mind, how many of you drink coffee to go to the bathroom in the morning? That's also called constipation. If your body isn't going naturally, if those muscles aren't working naturally without help, we have a problem. So your digestion makes up 75% of your immunity. That's a big deal. So rather than looking at counting calories and what diet am I on, look at what foods agree with my body and what doesn't. What foods are slowing down my ability to absorb nutrients? What foods are not breaking down in my body very well? Mucus, phlegm, signs of not good digestion. Body can't break it down, causes mucus, causes phlegm. Questions about digestion? Yes?
What if people like right away as soon as you eat every single time? Like as soon as you eat lunch, you go to that breakfast.
So there may be a little bit of irritable bowel syndrome, because then you can go on the opposite side, right? I think the majority of people are constipated, and then we've got the other side. So besides the food conversation for digestion, we also have, and that is a definite conversation to have, something that's irritating you, but there's also an emotional component to this. And there's an emotional component to all of it. All of you are here at Conscious Life Expo, so I understand and I know that you get that there's an emotional, energetic, vibrational frequency to everything we do. So besides the science, because I'm very science, I'm also very metaphysics, because you can't get around that. So we have the food part is very important, but then there's also your gut and your digestion is how you digest life. How much anxiety do you have? How much stress do you have? That affects your digestion too, just as much as food can. So we have to look at the balance of both of those things, of what is it biochemically I'm putting in my body that agrees with me or not, and what is it emotionally? Am I allowing myself to, how is my relationship with my life, or with source, or with whatever I believe? Am I feeling a lack of trust? Am I anxious? Am I traumatized? Okay, so your emotions affect your digestion as well. So we start to look at these two pieces to figure out how to best get you to be as healthy as you can and extract the nutrients from your food. So that's step number one. Secret number one is digestion. Questions? Any other questions? Secret number two. Secret number two has to do with getting smart exercise. How many people have exercised before and not gotten the results you thought you should get? Raise your hand if you did something and you expected lots of results and you didn't get them.
I looked in the mirror right afterwards.
Did you?
It didn't happen.
Well, that was wishful. That was great. Like, I'm glad you're so excited to expect that to happen and transform right away. I mean, that's positive thinking, right? But we have to look at exercise as what it is, and it's a whole bunch of science. Exercise first starts out with your anatomy, okay? Your bones. I don't know if any of you saw I brought bones. And I brought bones to talk about joints, because part of what I call smart exercise, again, 20 years, my first love was actually your skeletal structure, was actually understanding how this works. Because your exercise, in my opinion, should be completely based around your structure. Not around an idea that you're trying to hit an exercise. Somebody told you you're supposed to look like this position, or you're supposed to mimic what they're doing. Their body may be very different than your body. If we all stood up next to each other, hip to hip, you would see people with long torsos, long legs, short legs. Does that mean we're gonna bend and fold the same? Absolutely not. Everyone's different. My husband and an old friend of ours, the height difference was amazing. I think Marcus was 5'8", my husband is 6'2", and they had the same wingspan. Marcus had extra long arms, right? So you can't look at that and say, well, they're gonna move the same way. They're not. And so I care about the fact that your joints are something that you can replace these days, but you really don't want to. Let's preserve them. We can. So getting smart exercise really is looking at the science around exercise. I mentioned that your anatomy was one of those. Biomechanics is the science of using your joints and the application of force. How many of you understand physics? Just general physics. So if I drop this mic, it'll fall to the ground. Yes, that's gravity. Okay. So how we apply force to our bones and to our muscles has a physiological effect. That's the use of physics in exercise. It's a very important part of exercise, but there's a lot of people that have no idea. So they're doing weird exercises that make no sense, that end up actually wrecking their joints, not getting the results they want, but they saw someone else do it and thought that it was good, so they followed them, or they saw, oh, that person has a really good body, I'm gonna do what they do, but it didn't work for them. So getting smart exercise is gonna cut that conversation about not getting results right in half, right? There's a reason you didn't get the results you wanted from the exercise that you did. I probably could explain it to you, but just know that you didn't do anything wrong in terms of you exercise, but you had either unrealistic expectations about what it does, or you're following just sort of a general idea about something without actually making it personal. You have to make it personal. You can get by trying different applications of exercise, and then stumbling upon one, but then when you plateau, where do you go from there? Without sort of the understanding, like an architect. How many of you would try to build a house without ever hiring an architect? Okay, are you an architect?
No.
Okay. Well, that's good, I'm glad. I would not, because I would be afraid it would fall on me if I tried to build a house without an architect. The structural integrity would scare me about putting weight in different places. So that's the same thing with your exercise. Questions about that? Okay, step number 3, secret number 3. It's about your hormones. So the hormone conversation is an interesting one because you find people who are either are on the side of bioidentical or very much against hormone replacement altogether. Most people who are against hormone replacement altogether don't know or understand about bioidentical hormone replacement. Now, I'm not saying that's what I think everyone needs to do, but your hormones are your hormones, and they're what keep you together. And for a lot of people, see, we start with digestion because also digestion and exercise and hormones. Once you start to stabilize these things, you start to uncover why you have cravings, why you can't sleep at night, why you sweat all the time, why your stomach's rumbling. See, these things get the physical out of the way, so when we move to secret 4, we can actually concentrate on the emotional piece. So back to hormones. As we age, we lose hormones. Everyone, all of you, I don't care who you are, you lose hormones as you age, period, end of story. Now, does that have to be the end of the story? Of course not. You can do things to actually keep increasing not increasing meaning like after you start to decline, you can keep increasing the production of your hormones to keep you at that level and maybe go a little bit above. Anything from exercise to bioidentical to Chinese medicine to acupuncture and herbs. There are lots of different ways to eating. Your diet can affect. How many of you in the room are vegans? Great. Okay. Now, there's a solution for vegans, but did you know that your yolks of your eggs contain the cholesterol needed to make your hormones? If you're not eating your egg yolks, you are missing the substrates to make your own hormones. Just one piece of nutrition that if you're eating egg whites because you don't want the fat and you're counting your calories and you're wondering why you feel brain fog and you have this sort of energy, this anxiety, and you don't feel like grounded in your body, add the yolks back in. Okay, so you can eat to affect how you produce your hormones as well. But we have to have that hormone conversation because there are so many factors. You may be having irritations in your body that you have no idea what it's about, and it's because your vitamin D is low. It might be because you have adrenal fatigue. How many in this room know what adrenal fatigue is?
No.
Let me tell you quickly. So we have many sets of hormones. We have your sex hormones, we've got your thyroid hormones, and we've got your adrenal hormones. Your adrenal hormones, your adrenaline, is there to save your life. It's fight or flight. Let's say we're cavemen and women back in the day, and we stumble upon a bear who's hungry, or a tiger that wants to eat us. That adrenaline kicks in, allowing us to have enough speed and strength to get free and to save ourselves. But what happened back then is that person, caveman, cavewoman, then took a nap, maybe for a couple days, to replenish those hormones because we used them. Well, what happens now today? How many of you have been chased by a tiger or a bear recently? Exactly. So what happens now today? Well, today we get an email and we go, I gotta get this done, oh my God, I'm gonna die, right? We treat everything as if we're gonna die. Communication, our technology, paying a bill, but we're really not gonna die. But we constantly utilize this adrenaline energy all day long. If you're a coffee drinker and you drink more than 2 or 3 cups a day, that also causes adrenal fatigue. So basically, adrenal fatigue is when you have depleted your adrenal stores and you're not able to recover. So what happens when you have adrenal fatigue? Well, weight loss does not happen, I'll tell you that right now. You can be on a perfect program, but you are not losing any weight because your body won't release it because you're in fight or flight. 2, brain fog. You have brain fog. No amount of coffee or caffeine, espressos are gonna wake you up. You keep trying, but it's not happening. Moodiness, okay? Moodiness is another adrenal fatigue. Feeling like things are harder. I knew after my wedding I had adrenal fatigue because I was wearing my heart rate monitor and I went out to go for a run. Now mind you, I did not take time off of exercise. I just lived at I have to pay for the wedding for so long that when we got back, I went out to go for the run and I looked down at my heart rate monitor and I was already in my target heart rate zone, walking. I was like, I have adrenal fatigue, look at that. So it's when like walking upstairs gets harder than it was before, and not just because of muscles, but because of your heart. So adrenal fatigue is a serious issue that we all live in because of our technology. Our technology produces a speed at which we try to live our lives, which is unrealistic to the way that we're made up. Doesn't mean that we can't jump in, play for a little while, but we gotta jump out. We gotta disconnect. We gotta ground, we gotta earth, we gotta be centered. Because we will never keep up with. It is now past the point where we can't keep up with the technology. So you gotta pick and choose how you're gonna let that affect your energy. So questions about hormones? Okay, yes?
You have hormones linked to sleeping?
Yes.
Explain that a bit.
Sure. So if you have adrenal fatigue, you also might not get good sleep. If you have low progesterone, or as a man like to say high estrogen, that also may produce a lack of sleep. So again, there's a chemistry lab in your body. And I'm definitely one who, back in the day, years ago, probably 15 years ago, I swore that I would never put my parents or my mother on hormones. Because that was back when people were just doing the synthetic kinds, which by the way are Prempro and Premarin, that's made from horse urine. And they were doing the studies and the whole breast cancer thing, and so everyone got scared. One study about a synthetic hormone made everyone go, no, I'm not doing hormones. Okay, which I understand, but that was synthetic. And then 15 years ago, I started working with some trainers who were also physicians, and I saw the program they were on, and they told me they were bioidentical, and a woman was on progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. And for some reason, without even knowing too much about bioidentical hormones, I went, well, that makes sense. Because before that, doctors are prescribing to women estrogen and progesterone. Well, you make more than two. Women make testosterone. Why aren't we replacing the testosterone? Why are we just replacing these two? So to stay optimally healthy, you have a chemistry lab within you. And my suggestion, no matter what level of health you're at, get tested. Get a comprehensive panel so that you know where you are. You may find something that may be contributing to something that you don't know is happening, and it gives you get out ahead of it. It's a lot easier to know what's coming when you see it. When you see a TSH reading, a thyroid stimulating hormone reading start to go down, which by the way, you could have a thyroid disorder for years and never uncover it if your doctor's only doing TSH. You want to be getting a T3, a T4, a TSH, and maybe even a T2 reading. Because then you get to see what's coming. You see it decline and go, oh, no, we got to work on that. Because a TSH reading is so big that the doctor will say you're in normal range no matter where you are. So you could be down here at the bottom, and then it's going to take a couple more years until you fall off, and all of a sudden you have a thyroid condition. But you could have caught that a little bit ahead of time and fixed it beforehand. So I really recommend everyone at least once a year get a full test. And I have on my website, but you can email me because I think you get there through the book, a list of all the hormones to get tested. But a real comprehensive functional medicine doctors are the best, but you can even buy it yourself. You can go to Life Extension and you can pick what test you want.
Do positive hormones like endorphin offset negative like adrenaline? Do they balance out?
So if you have adrenal fatigue, so the two hormones that make up adrenal fatigue are your cortisol levels and your DHEA. If you have a DHEA that's in the toilet, you need to put some in there. Now, vitamin D, if you heard a lot about vitamin D can also act as a hormone. So if your vitamin D levels are low and your DHEA is low, now we're really talking about like you're in the pits. And even just taking vitamin D can help you increase your DHEA. So vitamin D will convert into a hormone, and DHEA is a mother hormone that once you get that replenished, it will help to make all the rest of them. So that's why you want to get tested, because yes, taking one thing can help affect the whole chain.
Yeah, I'm talking about endorphins and positive hormone flow from good mood,
Possibly, because again, there's our genes and our genes expressed, right? So if your negative mood is causing your body to shut down, then yes, a positive mood at least allows an environment in which that might be more possible. So I would maybe test that and see if my positive mood can sustain me making hormones for a while. And if it can, then do that.
You said you can test online. What was it called?
Life Extension.
Life Extension.
There's many different panels. So it depends on what you want to test, and sometimes maybe I want to piecemeal some of it together. If I had to say the most important thing for everyone to test, like really, right now, would be vitamin D. Because at least if you got your vitamin D levels up, which you want them to be no less than 50, ideally you're at 70 or 80, maybe even 90. If you're a cancer patient, you want them at 100, but if you're not having cancer, 70 to 90 is a great range. Most people are at like 20 and 12. It's not good. Yes?
Can I have one of those forms?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else about hormones?
Is there a home test for the levels you mentioned, like vitamin D?
Yes, I think Everlywell is a company that does home tests. Everlywell, Everlywell. They do home tests for vitamin D, I believe, and so does Life Extension. Again, you can just pay for it, go to the lab core nearest you, and just test your vitamin D. Tracy?
You know what, I was told once before that I was low on DHEA,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really felt like I had low energy or anything. What are the symptoms of that? Because they tried to put me on a supplement and it broke my skin out,
Mm-hmm.
so I stopped taking it. So, any ideas on that?
Do you know what your level was?
I need to dig it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's not affecting the rest of your chemistry and you feel fine and you don't want to do anything about it, if that were me, I would be doing some kind of Chinese medicine, acupuncture and herbs possibly, to kind of juice myself up in terms of making sure that I'm producing and making sure that you're doing resistance training to stimulate your own production of hormones. And of course, looking at the diet and making sure that all the food is in line, like you're eating your egg yolks and different things like that, right? But DHEA is what, along with your cortisol, creates adrenal fatigue. And adrenal fatigue, for some people, you may not even, some of us have so much energy that you don't know you have adrenal fatigue until you crash. Because your energy makes up for the fact that you have these other symptoms. So you have to look at in your life, where are you masking them? That's what I said about like the coffee. Like if you're drinking coffee to go to the bathroom in the morning, that's a mask. You're masking that. If you're drinking coffee all day long and you're thinking you're someone who doesn't need 6 hours of sleep, I invite you to get rid of all caffeine and then see how much sleep you need. And you may need a couple weeks first to just replenish and then get back to normal. Giving up caffeine's no joke, but it's an addiction. And some of us live on it. It replaces what our adrenaline's supposed to do. So just, that would be my,
Got it.
yeah. And I just would look at the whole thing again. For optimal health, you want to get a picture. Yeah.
What about like ginseng? Does that affect anything with something like ginseng?
For your hormones, I don't know. There might be some studies out there. I've never been told or heard anything about ginseng, but again, muscle test yourself. Those who know how to muscle test yourself, if you know how to do that, just ask yourself, will this help my hormones? Again, start with getting some labs done at some point in time so that you can then start to problem solve what you need to work on. And again, life balance, I know it sounds like a crazy thing, but really, life balance, like where are you too much in one way and not enough in another way? Is there a proper amount of, what do you need? Right? We live in a culture where anxiety is almost a badge of honor, and I know not necessarily at this conference, but think about anxiety. People think it's just a condition, like, oh, I have anxiety. Okay, anxiety, first of all, is not even a feeling. Anxiety is a body sensation letting you know there's something that wants to come through. There's something inside of you that needs to be expressed or acted upon, whatever that is for you. But we hold back so much that we think, oh, it's just because I'm not connected, I have too much electromagnetic frequencies and I'm not sleeping and I have too much caffeine, but we're not checking in with. So back to the divine life purpose and soul mission, until we quiet that down, we can't hear what's going on. We gotta get centered and balanced to get those messages. And if we're too up here and not grounded, sometimes we miss them. So again, taking care of the body temple is going to help you figure out that divine life purpose. Because it's not even about figuring it out, it's about taking that aha moment, having that receiving come to you and go, oh, I'm going to do this. And then having like, okay, so I'm going to manufacture a product. I just figured out what it was. It was a joke at my event a month ago. I made a joke, then I went on a walk, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I'm on the walk and I went, oh my God, that wasn't a joke. I'm really going to do it. Do I know how to do it? No. Do I have the finances to do it? No. Do I know how much I can sell? No. But I know pretty clear I'm going to do it. But you're like, I took that time because that's when I get my downloads, is when I'm exercising. I get them when I'm exercising, I get them when my mind is quiet, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh. Okay. Yeah.
Does adrenal fatigue affect like sexual drive?
Yes.
You know, for men and stuff, you know?
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, you're kind of like at extreme, you're like, you know, going all night, and all of a sudden you're like, nah. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You're in fight or flight. You're like, right? You have no energy for anything.
yeah, you know, it's sort of like, if that's attached to any kind of like negative, you know, emotions and stuff, you know? So now you're like, okay, now on this end, you know, you're closed and protected, and
Yes.
so would the adrenal fatigue affect the sexual drive as well?
Absolutely. Sexual drive, being able to have sexual endurance, absolutely. Being present in sex, yeah.
You said anxiety is not what?
A feeling, it's a body
Oh,
sensation.
feeling, okay.
We like to say I have anxiety like it's a
Yeah,
condition,
yes, right,
like it's a disease that somehow caught me and I have nothing to do with it. Oh, I have anxiety. No, you have lots of things bubbling up inside of you that need expression, that you're ignoring and repressing, either through food or technology or sex or shopping or sleeping or television. Pick one.
So there's no anxiety disorder of being anxious.
If someone's anxious, they've got a lot of stuff that needs to come out, but we, because we want to classify and medicate, say, oh, you're too hyper, like ADD or ADHD.
Well, are some people born with their chemicals not producing the right amount?
Possibly,
Unless that-
absolutely possibly. And there are ways to test a lot of that. But the majority, I worked with a therapist in the past who was an ADD specialist who basically said ADD is bullshit. No, I'm not going to go into that right now, but as she was a specialist, her mother created the testing. And it's because, again, you have a child who's disconnected from their body. And then we can add astrology into this. Astrology's not even on this sheet. But you guys all, let me ask, how many air signs in the room? Okay, how many fire signs in the room? How many of you have done your full chart? You know your sun, your moon, your, not that many. Okay, so I have a lot of fire in me. Fire is energy. If I don't utilize my energy, what do you think is gonna happen to me? I'm gonna get anxious. because I have a lot of fire. That is part of my element that's in me. I use astrology with people that I work with and because you have to. It's your composition. It's your energetic composition on this planet at this time that you chose. So how do you work with it? How many of you are water signs? Wow. No, Tracy, you're an air sign. Aquarians are water or air. Aquarians are air.
It's water.
Yeah, no, it's air.
No, we are air.
Air. Okay, so you water signs are emotional.
Right.
You're really emotional, right? But someone might think that's a bad thing. Oh, I'm so too sensitive. You are who you are. How do I work with that? It's not about, I have to train it out of me or repress it, right? Anxiety comes from repressing the fact that I have emotions. Geez, we all have emotions, right? So again, this is part of the integration. Like I said from the beginning, I do integrative work because if you learn something and don't use it, what's the point? It's just information floating around that you have not experienced or had changed your life in any way. So back to conclude that hormone conversation very quickly, because we do need to move on. So I leave a little bit of room if anybody has any questions, because I think I have to be done here at 5:50. Is that the facts are you age, you lose hormones when you age. You lose muscle when you lose hormones. You can't maintain as much muscle mass. So what does that mean? Your metabolism is slower. What does that mean? Well, if you don't change your food, you gain weight more easily. Okay? I don't know how many women over 50 are doing too much damn cardio and wondering why they're not losing weight faster. Guys, it's the wrong exercise. 20 years I've been talking about this. I keep thinking people are going to come on board and understand this. No, but there's a new batch of 50-year-olds every year who are like, what happened? How come I gained weight? I'm working out 5 days a week. Because you're doing the wrong exercise. Okay? That's back to the smart exercise plus the hormone conversation. Okay, so it's important to know because it's your life force. And there's no reason for you to have to decline. That's all I'm saying. You have a choice. You don't have to decline. You don't have to do hormone replacement therapy if you don't want to. But there are other ways, natural ways. Okay? All right, so I feel like I want to have you stand up real quick because it's real hot and I don't want you to fall asleep because there's a lot of information. So just like stand up for a second, stretch it out, shake your butt, do something, get a drink of water. It was cool, now it's warm again. I kept thinking like the hotel was going to be freezing, right? Aren't most hotels with conferences blasting the air conditioners?
Yes.
God, I'm so warm. Okay, oh wait, I fell here. All right, okay, have a seat. All right, this next section I could keep you here for the next week. It's about emotional processing. Okay, now the reason why it's 4 is because like I said at the beginning, digestion will affect, how many of you understand that your food affects your mood?
Yes.
Sugar is like cocaine for your brain. It's probably worse. Okay, sugar is gonna give you that high, and then you're gonna crash. Okay, blood sugar gets affected with food. Gluten, dairy, corn, some things trigger cravings in you. So you may think you're an emotional eater, but actually, your food's just causing your cravings. That's why it's in the order that it's in. First, you deal with the food because the food will help you get rid of the cravings. It'll help you balance out your brain chemistry and your gut chemistry. Right? Next, we move to, so there's a step-by-step process. The hormone part, if you're completely hormonal and unbalanced, we get that. Now we can look at the emotions. We don't want to start down here when your food's contributing to all your symptoms. Let's get that underway and then move to the emotions. So how many of you, when I say emotional processing, understand what that means? Water sign. Yes?
Water and fire.
Yes. I'm a water sign too. I have a lot of fire, but I'm a Pisces.
Me too.
So emotional processing. How many of you feel an emotion and think, oh my God. First of all, before I ask that, how many of you understand victim consciousness? Have you heard about the victim triangle, victim, persecutor? No. Okay. Talk for another time. So emotions don't just happen. They don't fly around in the air and you pick them up. Okay, emotions happen because we observe something, or a memory gets triggered by either observing something, right? Or maybe even a smell can trigger a memory, but it's about this, what happens is right here first. We observe something or we remember something, and then we have an interpretation about it, and that's what causes the feelings. But how many of us just get upset and think, well, it must be your fault, because I didn't feel like this before. But that's not a process. That doesn't solve anything. So part of the next section about, again, getting your emotions in check has to do with astrology, has to do with emotional processing, and most of us aren't educated on how to process our emotions or even identify them. I was talking to somebody once who I knew very well, who I said, "Are you sad?" And they thought about it for a second and went, "No, I'm mad." And I went, "No, you're sad." Oh. But that person, male, could not admit that he was sad because sad felt like weak, right? So if we can't even identify our own feelings, how good are we going to be communicating with other people or being able to identify what we need? So there's a body of work called Nonviolent Communication. Anyone heard of it? By Marshall Rosenberg. Nonviolent communication is one of the, I love it. I've sort of like flipped it around because I believe that in order for us to be empathetic to others, we have to understand ourselves because we can only pull from the database of what we understand for ourselves before we can do for someone else. And he teaches a 3-step process, and I teach a 3-step process, and it's basically 1, what am I feeling? 2, what need is not being met that's causing this feeling? And 3, what strategies do I need to take to get the need met? It doesn't require anyone else to be different. Now, I just gave you a lot of information. That's one kind of emotional processing. The point is about this section, you need to understand yourself. How many of us study something? Like we become masters at some kind of art or craft or information. We get really, really good at it. How come we don't spend the same time understanding ourselves and how we work? How does my brain work? How do I process? Why do I feel this way? What happened to me? What does that mean for me? Okay, we go inward to understand ourselves. So we need to have an emotional process. What happens when we don't emotionally process? What? React? We react. What else do we do?
It gets stored in his page in his lake.
Yes, we store it. And how else do we store it? We
suppress it.
We repress it. And what ways do we repress? Alcohol, food, sex, shopping, being busy. We all have an addiction. You all have an addiction. You all have multiple addictions, actually. We all do. And identifying your addiction would be a great place to start to understand what keeps taking me out of my life. So looking at abundance, compassion, divine light purpose, soul mission, health, ligaments, healing. What stops me from getting further in that? Where do I keep taking myself out? Because I'm too uncomfortable and because I don't know how to process, because no one's ever taught me how. Feelings are like the weather. If we just allow them to be, they'll pass. But we still need to understand how to process them. So it's a really important piece for true transformation. And step number 5, secret number 5, is about community. How many of you here this weekend feel comfortable? You feel connected because you know that every time you turn the corner, someone's kind of like you. They think a little bit like you possibly, they're interested in the same things. I mean, this is a very specific event. There's a comfort to that. This is important. Finding groups like this is very important for your growth because who else is going to hold you accountable to that growth? Who else understands where you're going? So having the courage to connect to yourself and then reach out for a community is how you implement some of these changes. Because again, if you take this information, you go back to home or you go back to your family or you go back to people who don't really do what you do or understand you, who think you're weird, and you try to tell them what you're doing and what you want to do, they don't get it. So how does that help you? How does that serve you? It probably doesn't. It probably feels like it deters you.
Oh yeah.
So secret number 5 is you have to take all this information and find a place to nurture it and to incubate it and to birth it and have people who are like-minded with you as either teachers or mentors or just partners to hold you accountable to do this work and who know that you're going through something that they're going through too. So I'm going to conclude because I probably have about 5 minutes.
I just wanted to say, because what you said about the connecting, a little while ago, I lost my phone, and I was like, okay, I'm in a conscious expo. That means that everyone here, someone is going to turn in my phone. This was probably the first time. I was so glad. And that's actually, so I backtracked, and someone actually did turn in my phone.
Nice.
I know. Like, I'm like, there's thousands of people here.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, this is about consciousness. That means everyone here is like-minded. Everyone here is for the same reason.
Yep.
If someone finds it, they're going to turn it in. That had been somewhere else.
Good. Very good.
Glad I was here.
Any other questions? I will be hanging out in the back and afterwards cleaning up too. Yes? I do. I don't have that book. I sold out of that book. I have my other book, Fit to Love, How to Get Physically, Emotionally, and Spiritually Fit to Attract Love of Your Life. I've got that book with me. I don't have the other book because I sold out. I'm sorry. But you can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Do you have a booth downstairs?
I don't have a booth, but I'm at booth
456.
456. Yes, and I'll be there probably for like another hour, but that's it. I'm in Los Angeles. I do work with people. Did you get a sheet? Okay, yes, I work with people who don't live here virtually, either Skype or phone. I also work with people who live here virtually, but I also work with people one-on-one here in Los Angeles, so yeah. So find me out the door, find me at booth 456. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all for coming.
Thank you.